listeners. Welcome to Oakland. So you've been having a good time.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I love coming to the Bay Area. The Bay Area is one of my favorite places to visit. I feel like everybody out here move at a different frequency. Everybody kind of, I feel like the perspectives are usually more open and people are usually more aware in more ways than some around here. Even when I disagree with them, I still can account for their awareness. That's a little bit different than being in other parts of the country.
Yeah, I'll say, we had a lot of social activism movements here.
I think that a good way to start this conversation, though, is just jumping right into the ways that a lot of people in our community believe that we are getting a short end of the stick at the expense of people in the LGBT community getting the longer end. And I feel like a lot of times that type of thinking usually leaves people in the intersections left out: Black trans, Black gay, Black lesbian, Black woman, whatever, right? So just recognizing this month, a lot of corporations are going to hijack and profit and monetize different struggles.
Got it. Yes, we're going to see the Juneteenth stuff and the Pride stuff all in the stores. But I think that's it's June. Both of those things are occurring that month. I think that's a good context to lean into this conversation and kind of talking about, being members of the Black community.
Yeah.
And how people like myself and yourself have come to this more inclusive way of thinking and being. I can say I was not raised like that.
Yeah.
It was not a part of my consciousness growing up or anything like that. So I think that's something to lean into for those that feel like there has to be this binary way where it's like, it's this or that. It's gay or straight. It's Black or white.
Yeah.
It's,
man or woman.
Yeah, man or woman. I know that specifically when we're talking about, before we even get into how we came to being more inclusive, specifically more conscious around transness, it's important to recognize, as Black people, you and I can recognize, and most of our community can recognize, that when a corporation or a company takes aesthetics of Blackness and monetize them, that doesn't equate to now we care about Black people.
Right.
We recognize that. Right. We know that if Target or Apple or Google decides to take a Black person and say, Juneteenth, we celebrate, that don't mean that this company stands for Blackness or Black people.
Right.
What irritates me is that the flip side, for somehow, all of a sudden, our community don't know how capitalism works when it comes to the LGBT community.
Right.
So if Target or Google or whatever company I just named start to push a rainbow, this don't mean they are trying to push an agenda.
Right. They're just trying to make money.
That's all they trying to do is make money. Yeah, man, with that being said, I want that part to be about, like, thinking about performative capitalism, thinking about, woke capitalism as well as rainbow capitalism, and it's acknowledging that, hey, capitalism is all about monetizing and being able to turn into profit anything, whether it is a endorsement of capitalism or, you feel me, a deconstruction of capitalism. Mm-hmm. You can go buy a Eat the Rich shirt. You feel me? You can go to the internet and go find literal products that have statements on them that are against capitalism or against monetizing or against whatever. But capitalism is so insidious that they can just incorporate that in there.
Right, right. I think I don't want to take us too off topic, but one other point I want to put in there, especially we're being here in the Bay Area where I don't know if you've heard of bipping. Bipping is the practice of breaking car windows.
Shout out to my boy Rashid for East Oakland. my best friend, he put me on game last night. That's definitely
don't leave nothing in your car.
Yeah,
but we see everybody get mad at the bippers, right? And why are they doing that? And they're breaking in the car windows. But the part that people don't acknowledge is the reason why people are there and in that space of doing that to survive is because of capitalism, and we have all these billionaires here, and I really want people to make connections that the more billions the billionaires get, the more tents you see on the street. And so we're putting our vitriol and our anger in the wrong spot.
Right. The white supremacists and the alt-right have masterly been able to convince people in our community that our enemy is drag queens, our enemy is trans people, our enemy is not white supremacists. Right. So when I think about this in terms of policy, AP game, the same folks that's convinced you that they the enemy over there, they both passing policy on us and them, on all of us. So while you being convinced the biggest threat to kids is drag queens in schools, they taking billions of dollars from the NRA on for guns. And they passing laws to attack your kid in the school.
Yeah.
As a cisgender Black woman. Cis means that you identify with the gender that you were labeled with or assigned with at birth. What was your journey like?
Okay.
specifically when it comes to orienting to transness and trans people.
Okay. I think I'm going to even take it back a little before my awareness or consciousness or ability to think about others outside of myself, right? Just being a Black woman and being super interested in Afrocentric movements, Pan-Africanism, and yet as I was like coming up in college and, you know, listening to the Dr. Umars and Tariq Nasheeds and all that, I was like, wait, there's like this piece of my identity that's not being considered here, right? Like my womanness, right? And I'm like, I'm both. I'm not only Black. Yeah. I'm not only a woman. I'm both. And so a lot of those conversations were like very Black male centered and like, oh, you shouldn't care about the feminist movement or like you shouldn't care. And I'm like, I'm still a woman. You know, like I'm a Black woman. I'm not a white woman. I'm still a woman though. And some of these things are still applicable and relevant to me and should be uplifted and highlighted. So I feel like that was my first awareness of like, how do we get out of this? There's only one way. There's only this way of thinking. And then I went to graduate school and that was really my first real encounter with a transgender person. I became friends within my class and, you know, that ended up being like my best grad school friend, you know, and so just hearing their experiences, it just like opened my eyes and made me aware and made me want to like read up more. And shout out to Twitter. I learned so much information from people on Twitter just tweeting. Taught me so much. Shout out to Black Twitter and left Twitter and the intersections of them both. Taught me so much and helped to like open my awareness and get out of the way that I have been socialized to think. Because a lot of us, you know, we're socialized to think, oh no, that's wrong or that's bad or it has to be this or that, which is what white supremacy does. It gives us a binary way of thinking about things. And when things don't fit inside the box that white supremacy says it's supposed to fit in, then it's bad, right? Which is why Black people are treated a certain way in this country. So I remember that as well. But through those experiences, it just made me like curious. And I really, you know, I feel like for myself, I'm super pro-Black. And what that means for me is that I'm here for Blackness in every single expression. Yeah. For me to acknowledge somebody in the way they want to be acknowledged takes nothing away from me. At all. So why not do it? I don't understand that. Like, it literally doesn't hurt me. It doesn't harm me. It takes nothing away from me. It actually enhances my world and my life and my thought process. It teaches me so much to think about and learn about identities that are different than mine. What? Okay. Yeah, mine is similar. I was in the debate world and I had, I think it was Adam Jackson from Baltimore. He used to debate for Towson University. He asked me like, can you say you for the Black community if it's people in the community that say you don't fuck with them? Or can you say you for your people if it's certain people in your community that don't feel protected by you? And those two type of thinking about that way what made me think about it differently. And then Joan Morgan's When Chicken Heads Come Home to Roost, when she said she felt like a slave of a slave, that was something that really impacted how I understood like intra-communal violence, how me as a Black man relate to other people in the community. And I'm always thinking about the oppressor, the man, but not thinking about how in particular instances I could be the man to somebody else. So that's what I kind of made me start being more, I feel like, inclusive in terms of Blackness and Black people, recognizing the multiplicity of Blackness and Black people, that we all don't sex the same, we all don't express our gender the same, we all don't believe in the same God, but nonetheless, we're all Black. When we acknowledge that there's an assault on the classroom and how Black children are being taught the knowledge of self or being taught that they are, you feel me, descendants of Africans, it is not the trans community or the LGBT community that's targeting that policy in the classroom. When we think about the various ways for how Black children or even Black people are overly incarcerated or we face discipline and conviction at high rates, it is not the trans community or the LGBT community that's convicting us. It is not the LGBT community or the trans community that's pushing these policies that make it where, you know, birthing people and women, you know what I'm saying, aren't able to get resources when it comes to, you feel me, not only giving birth, but just literally taking care of yourself. It is not this community. As a matter of fact, not only is it not this community, the individuals that are being the loudest about what this community is doing is in silence passing a lot of these policies. I think for me, just, you know, baseline conversations that I've had is when I ask people, what does it take away from you to acknowledge somebody in the way they want to be acknowledged? people have been like, nothing. You know, I think it helps give people like this little nugget to focus on and think about. Like, let me actually figure out how that hurts me to do that. I've heard people tell me like, oh, you know, when you put it that way, it helps me think about it like, wait, what am I all being anti this or that for?
Yeah.
Because it's being spoon fed to you through society, right? But when you really think about it and use your own thought process, it's like this it's a false harm. There's nothing that's happening to you to acknowledge people as they want to be acknowledged. It's nothing it doesn't hurt you. It doesn't take anything away from you. It doesn't take anything away from your identity and how you want to be acknowledged. You know, so thinking about that. And I think when people, anytime I hear people kind of being on some anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ, I'll be like, replace that with Black.
That's what,
because that's what was often said about us. And when people can lean into that, when they understand the ways that anti-Blackness operates, and they think about how if you replace those words that you're using with Black, how they're spewing that same white supremacist ideology, that's helped people be able to like change their thought process or start to be inquisitive or curious about thinking differently.
Yeah. What I found is being more effective recently, because it's easier for me to break down the nuances of it, is how over time the amount of people that identify as right-handed and left-handed, how it's changed, and how I can just get at the idea of an agenda. It's like we can acknowledge right now that there has been a 60% increase of people that identify as left-handed than they did 50 years ago. Because there was a common belief that being left-handed was demonic. Being left-handed was regressive, being irrational. So we literally taught people and pushed people away from using their left hand. So we forced people to identify as being right-handed. In 2023, we can acknowledge that there has been an upscale of people that identify as being left-handed. Would it be smart for you to say there's a left-hand agenda? There's a left-hand agenda, people trying to force us to be left-handed? No, we can acknowledge that now there's a time in society, we no longer pathologize people for being left-handed, and we're more accepting of people being left-handed, and now that's created a climate for people to identify who they actually are and what they actually are, left-handed. But you wouldn't say there's a left-hand agenda.
Right.
Likewise, there were people that were being forced into closets and or forced into gender dysmorphia. Now we have a more inclusive society that's more open, and now you're not forced into that way. Now you can be who you are. Now they're not popping you on your left hand because you decided to right and telling you that's not happening anymore.
Yeah.
And I found that using that analogy has been, for me, it seems like it's easier for people to be like, oh, because when I use the Black one, people be like, oh, you trying to compare Blackness to transness, and they decide to be trans, I didn't decide to be Black, and it's like I don't even have the time to tell you why you're wrong. You know what I'm saying? That's like that's philosophy 301. You still at philosophy beginner and like intro. I ain't even gonna go that way to get you at. So I'm just gonna explain to you about the left hand shit. Do you think there's been an agenda of the world trying to push people to being left-handed? Do you feel erased as a right-handed person that now we can acknowledge more left-handed people? If you see a left-handed person on the radio, you hear him on the radio, you see him on TV, you see him in the classroom, do you feel caned for as a right-handed person? Do you feel targeted?
Nope.
So why do you feel targeted from the people that's existing?
Right.
As a cisgender person, if I go into a store and I see a trans person and I feel targeted by that, what they say about me and my character in my
Exactly.
My daughter just turned 7, and me and my wife was watching Ultimatum a few days ago with the lesbians. It was a great. Like I can't wait to finish it. Seeing what's going on. Yoli and Yoli and Mal. It's a lot
Xander.
of y'all. Xander and Yoli, and what's the black girl name? That was with Yoli. Mal. Oh yeah, Mal. I didn't go there. But listen, my daughter walked in and was asking like, hey, why she look like that? Why she look like that? And I feel like I'm just answering the questions. And it's being real with my daughter and making it where instead of me trying to think like, I don't want to explain this like to a 7-year-old. It's like, shit, this is my child and I'm not being booked to come in and speak to a 7-year-old. So I don't have to think about that. I have to think about, I want my child to get this information in the house first and for them to already be presented how to think about people that identify and look like this, and from me and not from them, because I know what they're gonna tell you. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I think about it. But I don't put a lot of thought in it, really. I like the only thought about it is that I want my daughter to bring it to me, my sons to bring it to me, and me not kind of bringing it to them. But they starting to get older, so I'm trying to figure out how to like sprinkle a little bit of consciousness on them about gender and sexuality. Sexuality is what you're attracted to. Sex is how your chromosomes and gonads, operate. We can acknowledge that an individual has XY chromosomes. That is their sex. That does not dictate their gender. Gender is more about an expression and more about how you identify yourself, how you feel. And sex is more about your chromosomes, your gonads, genitalia. We can acknowledge that these two things are very separate. Without doing too much, but also just when they come to me, I'm happy and it's like, oh, I'm gonna answer the question straightforward. My wife might be say it like that. It's like, well, shit, baby, shit.
I would say for me, I think, I'm gonna put this in quotes because this is a whole other story about Bay Area, but we'll say it's more liberal. And so like I grew up having openly gay and lesbian teachers, and so I think for us on the West Coast, it's not like as big of a it doesn't feel like that much of a topic that has to be broached. Just kind of a little more. Not that there's not hatred, because there absolutely is towards those communities, but we're exposed.
But in the classroom, even in 2023, man, if you showed up and you had makeup on and a beard and you a teacher, I'm willing to bet all the money I have that you finna lose some students.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I wouldn't bet some money.
My son is in high school. He had this last year school just ended. He had 2 transgender teachers. So I think here,
in Texas,
well, California.
Well, in Tampa, Texas, man, even in Oklahoma, like I would like my heart and soul would go to any a person that is in that. Like, what I'm talking about, man? What you gotta think about? You existing and people saying you existing is trying to groom their kid.
That's ridiculous. That's but I would say the thought, because even when I was in school growing, even though there were gay and lesbian teachers, I feel like the students were still like, oh, he's gay, or, it's bringing that stuff home that they were getting from home to the school. But I think through exposure of me and my loved ones, people that I'm around, like they're exposed, but as well as this generation, I feel like they're being raised differently. Like my daughter, she's 6. She came home. Oh no, she's 7. Sorry, she's 7. She came home.
Parenting, man, do it to you.
It's hard to remember. But she came home and she was telling me about the new student in her class, and she just rolled it off her tongue and kept on saying, "Oh, we got a new student. They're non-binary." And
it's already
like it wasn't a
norm for them.
It wasn't a thing. It's not a thing.
Hey, listen, man. This is consciously education is elevation, research over me search. Stay sucker free in the land of lollipops, because sometimes people fall for sucker shit. So when I say education is elevation, that's trying to elevate you over all the suckery.
All right, my introduction is not going to be that cool, but my name is Alexis Cobbins. I'm the executive director of the California Preterm Birth Initiative.